Well, hello, my lovelies. How are you doing today? Yes, I will be on again later, hopefully, with the Jewish Messiah. Um, I had a really bad headache yesterday. Sorry about that. Can't help it when my headaches strike. So, anyway, today I'm doing Esther, and like I said, later on today, excuse me, hopefully I'll be on excuse me, to do uh the Jewish Messiah. That's my plan, at least. All right. So, first things first, let's get to comment of the week. And today's comment of the week comes from Let's Make Up Stories, Frank Turek. And today's comment of the week goes to Bobby Blue 8, who says, quote, if something is true, it doesn't need to be defended. It might need to be explained. Yes, end quote. This is from the video, if you haven't watched it. I like that. This is Bobby talking. I like that. Although I do have a nagging from the back of my mind that there are truths that need defending. I cannot give an example. I will be thinking on that for some time, I am sure. Thank you. Okay. So thank you for your thoughts, um, Bobby Blue. And we shall go on with, excuse me. Sorry about that. We shall go on with today's um, attraction, which is Esther 1 to 3. Okay. So, Esther chapter 1. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes, the Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. And I just remembered I forgot to share my screen. So let me do that right quick. Let me make sure you can see it. Okay, and you can. Um, if you go to the history books or archaeology books, you may see Xerxes called Ahasuerus. They're the same person. Um, Probably what happened is Xerxes is like, say, a Jewish name, and Ahasuerus is a Persian name, probably. Anyway, they're the same person. So Ahasuerus, Xerxes, same person. All right, moving on. Uh, and Cush is the Cush is the land under Egypt. So you so if you look at Africa, you've got Egypt at the top where the Middle East goes into Africa and you go into Egypt from the Middle East. And if you go down one country, that would be Kush, also known as Nubia, because if you look at archaeology textbooks, they will have it as Nubia. All right. Um, at that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa, and in the third year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people, from the least to the greatest, who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen, fastened with cords of white linen and purple material to silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restrictions, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Verse 9. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the seventh day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, he commanded the 70 eunuchs who served him, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. But when the attendants delivered the command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king: Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Mersina, and Memucan, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media, who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. Verse 15. According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? He asked. She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her. Then Memucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Okay, so basically, what happened is the king gives this banquet, and after who knows how many days of banqueting, Xerxes asks the queen to appear before him, and Queen Vashti refuses. And Xerxes says, okay, um, she's deposed as queen. She's no longer my wife. And yes, by the way, I looked this up. It really did happen. Um, so anyway, might not be the way it's presented here, but it really did happen, folks. All right, moving on. Verse 20. When the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all his vast realm, all the women will respect their husbands, from the least to the greatest. The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as Mimican proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household using his native tongue. Okay, moving right along, chapter 2. I'm sorry, my my sinuses are acting up big time. It's that time of year. Chapter 2. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Then the king's personal attendants proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let beauty treatments be given to them. Then let the young women who pleases the king, then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Among those taken captive was Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her mother and father died. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Haggai. Esther also was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Haggai, who had charge of the harem. She pleased him and won his favor immediately. He provided her with her beauty treatments and special food. He assigned to her 7 female attendants selected from the king's palace and moved her and her attendants into the best place in the harem. Esther had not revealed her nationality and her family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. Every day he walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what was happening to her before a young woman's turn came to go in to King Xerxes. She had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for the women, 6 months of oil of myrrh and 6 with perfumes and cosmetics. And this is how she would go into the king. Anything she wanted was given to her, was given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go there, and in the morning return to another part of the harem to the care of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not return to the king unless he was pleased with her and summoned her by name. When the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, daughter of his uncle Abihail, to go to the king, she asked for nothing other than what Haggai, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the harem, suggested, and Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. Now the king was attracted to Esther more than any other woman, and she won his favor and approval more than any other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And the king gave a great great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality. Excuse me. All right. Verse 19. When the virgins were assembled a second time, Mordecai was sitting in the king's gate, but Esther had kept secret her family background and nationality, just as Mordecai had told her to do, for she continued to follow Mordecai's instructions as she had done when he was bringing her up. Excuse me. During the time Mordecai was sitting in the king's gate, Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. But Mordecai found out about the plot and told Queen Esther, who in turn reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And when the report was investigated and found to be true, the two officials were impaled on poles. Yeah. You do not want to know what impaled means. Unless you already know. Yeah. Kind of gruesome. All this was recorded in the book of the annals in the presence of the king. Okay. So, chapter 3. And we're almost done with this shit show for today. Although I will say it's not much of a shit show considering some of the other shit shows we've been through. So, get for the book of Esther, I guess. Chapter 3. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him, but Mordecai would not kneel nor pay him honor. Now, remember, this is because the Jews only kneel to God, and not because they're being disrespectful necessarily. All right, verse 3. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated, for he had told them he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down nor pay him homage, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, in the month of Nisan, that is, the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and a month, and the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. And then Haman said to King Xerxes, "There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples and all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury." So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. "Keep the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. and to plunder their goods. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so they would be ready for that day. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was bewildered. And that is the end of it. So yeah, Ahasuerus is the Hebrew name for Xerxes. So that's why sometimes you'll see him as Ahasuerus. Sorry, I can't even talk today. Yeah. All right. Hey, native. So, like I said, you know, at least it wasn't much of a shit show today. I mean, there have been shit shows that have been worse. But still, we're talking about a bloodthirsty book. So, anyway. Ooh, sorry. Sorry. Like I said, I may be back on today to do um, the Jewish Messiah. Um, Hopefully, I will be. It just depends on, like, how I'm feeling and all that. So, anyway, you guys have a nice day. I will see you later if I do see you later today. And if I don't see you later today, uh, obviously I won't see you later today. The debunk for my members is up. If you would like to become a member, you can do so for as little as 99 cents a month. You get custom emojis and you also get debunks early, at least a day early, usually 2 days early. And that's all I have for you right now. And again, I may be on later on today. Alrighty. Bye.